Foggit is a high-performance fogging oil designed especially for internal combustion engines. Foggit can be used by everyone. If you have a lawnmower, a jet ski, a motorcycle, a tractor, a high-performance car, a classic car, racing vehicles, if it has a cylinder wall, it needs Foggit.
The number one source of friction in your engine is not what you think. Piston rings rubbing against the cylinder walls generate more friction than any other part of the engine. More friction and temperature means more wear and less horsepower. Fortunately, the team at Total Seal knows how to reduce friction and wear through innovative piston ring design. If it takes a piston, Total Seal can build a better ring.
This is WFO Radio.
Hey everybody, WFO Radio is back. Joe Castello back in the studio getting ready for the Super Grip Thunder Valley NHRA Nationals. We are headed to Bristol, baby. Bristol, and it is one of the coolest, best crowds, best tracks on the entire tour. I'm super excited about what we're going to see as John Force tries to go 2 in a row. He's going to be in the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge on Saturday, and he's going to be back at it on Sunday afternoon. We are going to talk about it all with the voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, who yesterday was making his way from Beantown to Bristol. And so we're going to connect with Alan Reinhart just minutes from now. We ask you to share the show, share it out there so all the NHRA drag racing fans see it in their feeds, right? And then maybe we'll watch the show and enjoy the show like they did yesterday. So many people checked out John Force. And that's another one. I really appreciate everybody who commented on the YouTube show and shared the show, whether it be the one on X or the one on Facebook or the one on YouTube, whatever your feed is. Thank you for sharing. And I spoke with John actually after the fact, and he was very happy he had the opportunity to clarify what in the moment was an emotional moment. And honestly, it's very challenging sometimes to compress reams of pages of ideas and emotions into a 30-second interview on the top end of the racetrack as they present you the Wally. It's very difficult. And of course, he had a different interview with Alan Reinhart, then he had a different interview in the media center, and then he tied it all together on WFO Radio just yesterday. It is the most recent show in the feed. If you go back, you can check it out, watch John, and share it. And all the people out there on the social media, groups, John Force, race fans, John Force only, like there's a bunch of John Force specific groups with thousands and thousands of fans. And they were all chiming in terms of, many of them were chiming in about the show and John's interview and how great it was. It was truly awesome to see this guy say what he said about his, retirement comments. I could really lean into like clickbait style. John Force retiring ? And then everybody will go and he would be like, answer no. Like the nightly news. Is there poison in the water? Tune in at 5. Oh my gosh, I better tune in. No, there's not poison in the water. So John Force, he said he's going to be around for a while, but he knows that the end is near. Like, is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it the year after next? Like the specifics, we don't know. And as I also talked a little bit about on the Ignition show, which is audio only, except for Patreons, you get to see the video. As a 75-year-old person, as a over 50 person, outside influences can affect outcomes. Who knows what it might be? And we, joked like if a box fell off a shelf and landed on my head, it would change some things. And if you're a race fan that's waiting for the John Force final tour to go back to the NHRA and get your ticket and just watch the last time John races, I think that is misguided logic. I really think it is. And you're really asking for, karma or whatever it would be called, the racing gods, to burn you. I think, wherever you are, that you're going to get a couple of chances to see John Force as he is in the stretch run of his career, and you should be there for them. I think if you were ever a fan of John Force and John Force Racing. On this show, we've got kind of the, I want to say the opposite of John Force, but an underdog funny car team owner that has made a little noise this year. They're running limited races. Mark Herzhauser is going to be on the show. Mark and I connected in, where was it? Charlotte. And we talked a little bit about it. I had a great conversation with Jimbo Ermilovich, and Jimbo told me that he really likes the car. And he talked about Jim Campbell as a driver. And Mark is very eager to be out there and keep finding money and keep running as many races as they can, as a high level as they can. And do you know him? Do you want to get to know him? You're going to get to know him on this show. We're going to talk a little bit about what they've got planned because they are in action in Bristol. Now, before we bring on Reinhart, I just want to shout out to all the people who make it possible for me to go WF Throw. I will tick through in more detail later, but you already heard a little bit about Total Seal Piston Rings and the folks at Foggit, Foggit. I got a call from Stinnett yesterday. It's a top shelf, literally, at the Summit store. If you go to the Summit store, you go to the top shelf, you can see a can of Foggit right there. And we've got our can of Foggit here. And it protects the inside of your cylinder walls once you put your race car away. It's as simple as that. And whatever it is, if it's got a cylinder wall, it needs Foggit. So go to Foggit.com. Bernie's Speed Shop, Burnyzz, where the B stands for bees. Bees. Poor Josh Hart. His team got a swarm of bees infested their pit area on Sunday at the racetrack. It was a big story. Apparently made a TV show. Bees. Well, Bernie's, they don't have that problem up there in Ocala, Florida. 100,000 square feet. They do frame-off restorations. They do everything automotive. Check out Bernie's, especially if you're looking for an exotic or a muscle car. If you're looking to sell an exotic or a muscle car, they do it all. Our great friends at CWT Industries, that's Randy Neal, Balance Machines. If it rotates, it can balance. Go to CWTindustries.com. Our great friends at Phillips Connect, samtech.edu. Marvin Rodak's Coffee, 817-924-6821, and Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School. They're all big supporters of WFO Radio, and we'll go into it a little more in depth later on in the show. But first, let's go out to Thunder Valley and the voice of the National Hot Rod Association, Alan Reinhart, who is already there. What's up, Alan? How are you?
Hey, Joe. If you haven't bought your tickets for Thunder Valley yet, you might want to get them because this might be John Ford's ever race.
Right.
If it turns out that's not true, then you might want to buy your tickets for because that might be John's last ever race. And
could be.
If he decides to go on after that, you want to buy your tickets for Seattle or wherever we go after that.
Richmond, Norwalk.
Yeah. So, but you just never know. The one thing that I can tell you with absolute certainty, and I've known John a long time, and we have spoken a number of times about a number of things that aren't necessarily public knowledge. So I feel like I'm really breaking a trust here, but I do feel like I've got some information I can pass on to it. John has more races in his career behind than he has in front of him. So
shocker.
It out there.
Reinhart shocks the world.
So
True.
If you want to be sure that you buy your tickets this weekend just in case, and then if it turns out that everything, you never know, right? You got breaks a hip, things happen when you get to be buy a ticket to every race on tour, then you will be certain that you'll be there for his final race, and that's just a little friendly advice that's worth everything.
I'm glad you went there with the hip. I wasn't going to go there, but really though. I tell my dad's 81, so he's 6 years older than John Ford. So my dad moves around as well as he can, given the circumstance. And I say to him all the time, I was like, Dad, don't fall down. Don't get on a ladder. Don't try to clean a gutter. Because that's what happens. Like when you get a little older, something, dumb, a slip on ice, you hear about it all the time. This has nothing to do with John Force. It could happen to me. It could happen to you. It could happen to anybody out there. You don't have to be old to have a little weird thing affect your life. And for me, like, what's it going to affect me? Going to the grocery store, doing the show, going and working with you guys. Something like that, something weird could make whatever the previous event was, the last race, for anybody who's a little bit older. And so no waiting around, guys. No
I've
waiting.
always been a believer that, you don't quit doing things when you get old, that you quit doing things. And the fact that John, every week, every month, every year, keeps going. I think that if he stopped driving when he was 72, getting back in the car right now would be a very difficult task because he got away from it. But I think as long as you're doing it, you're doing it. If you hear about a 70-year-old guy falling off a ladder, what was a 70-year-old guy doing on a ladder? But like, if you're a 70-year-old guy coolers for a living, and that's what you've done for the last 40 years, it's not like you're going to look at the calendar one day anymore. If it's something you do every day, then you're going to continue doing it. And I don't think today than you were yesterday. It's when you stop doing things and then try to do them again that you get my personal feeling anyway.
No, I agree. No, I think that makes sense.
I'm afraid to stop drinking beer.
That makes a lot of sense. Don't stop. Just do until you can't do anymore, obviously. But the guy can do. Like there has been debates a couple of times in my tenure working with the announcing team where I remember drivers saying things, John had some problems, going over the center line. He wasn't the only one. There were some people going over the center line too, right? But now he's not going over the center line anymore, which means to me, he didn't get younger. What it means is they fixed the car. And these are 12,000 horsepower nitro burning beasts. It needs to be right for him. And a lot of adjustment has gone into it. And the guy goes out and he didn't back into a race. He won the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. He ran Blake Alexander in the final round. And I keep mentioning because it happened. I think Blake has got superstar potential. He's interesting character, good looking kid, talented driver. Force beat him on Saturday and beat him on Sunday, and then ran JR and Austin Prock. There's no better example of younger, talented racers than that little group. And John beat them all en route to victory. I think it's like pole position. When you reach the checkpoint, it extends your game. I think every time John Force wins, it extends his desire to do this because he knows he can win. I just won, man. I got it done. Although he's quick to deflect any praise upon him in other directions, as I know you saw.
Yeah, and as I said, behind him and he's got in front of him. We all know, Father Time is undefeated, and there's a day when he can't do it anymore, or there will come a day when his sponsors go, John, look, really time to get a younger face out there representing our brand, to get somebody, and that's going to happen. It's not happening this week. It's not happening next week. It's not happening at the end of this year, but it is going. And, John has started to think about it and started to talk about it. So, he is certain enough and savvy enough with customer relations, for lack of a better term, and dealing with his fans and dealing with that when the time comes, everybody's going to understand why. And it's not going to be a mic drop and walk off the stage. Everybody is going to know it's coming, and hopefully have that opportunity to get out and see him race one more. I think that you really never know in this sport, and drivers say it all, whether you're 30 years old or 70 years old, you really never know where your last win's going to be. John doesn't know when his last win is going to be. Was that it last week? Probably, but it's possible. And so I think that's why people are following him a little bit closer. It's not like, well, he's not going to be here for another 10 years, right? We know we've got plenty of time to catch up because he's not 10 years. As far as how many, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Force's final during Don Perdone's final strike tour, I remember when he was standing in the winner's circle and literally contemplating, I've only got 8 races left. Is this it? Or I've only got 6 races left. Is this? And wondering if that was going to be the last time that he got to do it. And so when you get to that, but I don't think John's there yet.
Right, exactly. I think, and Nicole is in the chat section. She says they need to market the final season and sell merch, and everybody wants that, and we will sell merch. I'm sure they will sell merch. But it is what it is. I would call it, he's in the final phase of his career. Right? Like this is the final phase of his career. Like you said, it could be 4 years. It could be 3 years. It could be this year. We don't know what outside element is going to affect these things. But this is definitely, we're in the final phase. If you want to see John Force race, you should go. You should go now. This weekend, next weekend, this week, the In-N-Out Burger finals, as many times. Like think of the people who would go to see Elvis, right? They knew Elvis in his residencies in Vegas was in his final phase. And they went to see him over and over again because they knew at any moment, like those could be, and at some point it was for a tragic reason, but go see John. Don't sit on your hands. Go see John. And I think that would be great. Now, we talked a lot. We talked with John yesterday. I was going to, lean on you today for, we got to talk Doug Coletta. We got to talk Troy Coughlin. We had a lot of great, interesting things going on. And I definitely want to lean into a big preview of Bristol. Did you have any final thoughts on the whole, John Force 157th win and weekend at New England. Before we move into Top Fuel, and we can go drill down or dig down. And if you put them together, it's drig down on New England.
Well, as you said, he certainly didn't back into it. He ran some of the best running cars out and took on a bunch of the young lions and certainly was able to more than hold his own to get out of there with the trophy. The thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and I didn't realize it until after the fact, which kind of annoyed me because I myself on these things. It had been 3 years since there had been an all JFR funny car final. And the last all JFR funny car final was in Epping, which was, I think, a fun little factoid if I would have caught it on time, but I didn't get it until after the event was over. But the last time that 2 JFR cars went head to head in a final round was in Epping, Robert, 3 years ago. So for whatever reason, everybody talks about how Hagen loves that track so much. The Force team seems to like that track as well. And when we were out with what was a warm and a bit of a tricky surface, everybody expected on Friday night for there to be this big throwdown session, and that just didn't happen for a couple of different reasons. We had some great runs, but Saturday and Sunday was warm enough that it wasn't okay, watch me set the record. It was how are we going to navigate and survive this thing. And that made for some good side-by-side racing and some really exciting stuff throughout the course of all day long, really across all.
Absolutely. Doug Coletta had said that this was important to him a couple of weeks ago. On the weekend of the race, I was noticing, even when I would prompt him or go near it to see if he would pick at it, he did not. That this was the last racetrack on the tour that he had not yet won at, and he went out there and he got it done. And then he says in the media center, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to bring it up. Racer superstition. But what a day. Doug, gets through Scott Farley. Tony Stewart and Antron Brown were the marquee matchup. That was just blockbuster, seeing those two out there. Then we get to see Tony Stewart and Doug, like a rehash of USAC in the early 90s. Amazing.
But the first time that ever raced head-to-head in Top Fuel.
Amazing. That, you could feel the moment. I did. I don't know if everybody else did. They just see two top fuelers go up there. I felt the moment. Wow. This is not supposed to be happening, and yet it's happening. And then Doug ran Sean Langdon, and Langdon has been so good. Those guys have been so good. Brian Hughes and in the team, Langdon 33 on the tree. Langdon is just a beast. And then the final round gets out there and runs Tony Schumacher, who, thank goodness for that team, right? They've been languishing and struggling, and Neff, even on the starting line, is like his interviews. He knows he's in a challenge situation, but they've got 2 runner-ups on the season. So it's not a terrible season when you have 2 runner-ups. Obviously they want more. They get to the final round, don't get down. Doug Coletta wins, and Doug Coletta is your winner.
Yeah. And, for Tony Schumacher, yes, he has 2 runner-ups. Every other event's a first round loss. So that's not championship form. That's not what Joe Maynard expects. That's not what he expects. That's not what Tony expects. And that's not what that team is capable of. They're certainly capable of a lot. I found it fascinating that 4 runs in qualifying, they never made a 3. First round, they didn't make a 3-second run. And then they got away with it. And then second round, all of a sudden it's like, okay, there it is. They made a couple of good runs and then came up a little bit short to Doug in the finals. That going to be the turning point, right? Well, we look back, when we get to Indy, when we get to the end, we go, okay, Epping was the race where they turned it around. I think it's very important for that team to come in here to Thunder weekend and have another good event. I'm not saying they got to go to the final. I'm saying they need to make good runs. They need to event. There's just so many stories and sub-stories and stuff going on out there right now. Tony Stewart's getting better and better. And I don't mean necessarily him. I think he has been pretty solid. But the team making the adjustment to his being a little bit heavier than Leah and throwing on a car and having to make some different things happen. But the car's going down a racetrack. The car's running well. They came out on the wrong side of a terrific race. And we saw a lot of that over the course of Sunday in Top Fuel. You weren't going to go out there and run 72. You weren't going to do it. So who 88 or who can run 86 or who just going to run down there, go 90, survive and hope a little help from the other lane. But it made, I thought, for a really entertaining race because there wasn't one clear cut, this absolutely is the best car. And unless they make a mistake, get beat, you would look at the stat sheet probably and go, well, Doug Coletta qualified number one and he, ran the true. But on Sunday, there were a couple other cars that made really nice runs. Clay Millick, a couple of really nice runs. So, it wasn't like Doug was in a class by himself, being the last man standing, but there was a lot of really good competition out there, at least from my seat.
No, it's going to be tough. And obviously, Justin Ashley goes out first round against Josh Hart. Josh Hart brings on Stewie, which I think is an interesting pickup. John Stewart knows a lot of stuff. He has been in and around the Capco orbit for a long time. And Ron Douglas been out there by himself. And Ron says, we brought him in. So what did he say? Something extreme, like, so I don't jump off a roof or something, whatever
Don't
he
slip
said.
my wrist, yeah.
So, something like that. But just looking at it, we had some great stories. Torrence winning the Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge, bowing out second round to Clay. Just, it's so tough out there in Top Fuel right now. It's just going to get better and better and more interesting. Like, we just I think it's sit back and watch time, right? Like, just let them figure it out amongst themselves and enjoy it.
Justin Ashley is going to be a player. I don't think there's any question about that. You look what he's done the last couple of years. You look what early this year. But I honestly feel right now that the championship is going to go through courts. Somebody is going to have to be able to consistently beat those two cars. The fact that they are now a two-car threat, when last year, and I don't think Langdon would disagree with this, last year Coletta Motorsports was not a two-car threat in Top Fuel. Was solid, especially after Reading when they did the chassis change and the thing really came to life. But the Sean Langdon car just never really had that level of performance, which is the changes they did in the offseason. But they right now are a legitimate 1-2 punch. Get one of them out of the way, then you better look out because the other one's coming. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, at least from where I'm sitting, which one. If one car goes out, then they kind of do the all hands on deck. And you've got the exact same team that won the championship last year, whether Doug or Sean is their driver on that particular day or round.
Yeah, it's going to get, well, I'm real interested to see how it goes in the countdown. I know it's a long time away, but they're both good this year, right? Like, they're both good. Last year it was, they might not say it, but my opinion, it was a defer to Doug Formula One situation with a number one car and a number two car. And we're really all trying to get this number one car, the championship, and everybody work for that goal. Here, now that Doug has the championship, Sean Langdon's got a fast car. He's got a good car, and they might have to go through one another the way it all works out. And I expect them to, they'll race each other and go through each other. And that's going to be interesting to see how it all works out, because you're going to have Steve and Billy in the similar situation. Billy's not running a full season. He hasn't laid down to Steve ever. And so it's going to be fun. That's all I'm excited about. It's just going to be so much fun that we are going to be locked in, but it's a long way to go. Let's talk pro stock. Erica up against that milestone. We saw it with Greg, 100. Now, she hasn't. It's been a long time for her, right? But those milestones are hard to bust through. The 50th win. And Troy Coughlin being 13 on the tree in the final round made it a little tougher. And TJ wins it. Mild-mannered kid, always very happy when he wins. And he got the job done, had a good hot rod.
Well, one of the real interesting things about pro stock final round, Erica and Troy qualified 1 and 2. They were in the first session. They were the two quick cars Friday night, and Friday night set the field for pro stock since it was warmer and there wasn't going to be a whole lot of shuffling in the top. But Erica, again, looked like she had car most of the day. After his semifinal win, talking to Troy at the racetrack, Jason Galvin asked him, what's it going to take to win this? And he said, a teen light. I have to be teen on the tree to have a chance. And then he came up in the final round with 13. Turned out to be enough. He ended up winning it by 4 thousandths of a second. But I think the fact that, he understood this is what I can do and this is what I have to do to give my team a chance. The fact that his team gave him a better car in the final round. He picked up a couple of hundredths over his semifinal, and it just all came together. I don't think by any means that Erica, she's been around, but she doesn't go to the start line going, okay, well, I got this race won. I don't have to worry about anything. She was salty, if not teen, and her car ran like it had been running all day, which had been enough all day until Troy stepped up in that final round. But I think all that will quiet some of the chirping from people that think that Elite Motorsports is Erica and everybody else. Because when Troy came up there, threw down on the starting line, had the car pick up performance and beat her by a second, I feel like there are a lot of people out there that thought, well, Erica and Troy, well, that's it. Let's go have lunch because we don't know how this is going to turn out. And that wasn't the case. They went up there and they went head to head, and that'll silence a little of the chirping out there.
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly the people chirping that way, but the back and forth between KB and Elite, I think it cooled a little this week. Richard Freeman, nice interview on the starting line. He goes, this was our weekend, right? And the way he even said it, like, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a back and forth all year long. All right. So we had John Force yesterday, and I like the juxtaposition, right? There are some people, believe it or not, that don't like when John Force wins. And we talk too much about John Force to this day. And, even despite of the fact the guy went in 157 races, we want you guys to focus on the underdog stories. Well, we have exactly that. I met this gentleman out there in Charlotte. He's rolling out a Nitro Funny car with Jimbo Ermolovich as the tuner. I spoke with Jimbo. Jimbo's feeling pretty confident. Got Jim Campbell as a driver. Jim Campbell, kind of a fan favorite. And let's bring him on. And I think we're all going to end up liking him a whole lot. Mark Herzhauser joining us right now. We'll find out, right, Mark?
We'll see.
We'll see. Welcome to WFO Radio. How are you?
Joe, good morning. How are you? Great to be with you. Thank you.
And of course, Alan Reinhart
Alan,
as well.
Good morning. How are you? Great to be with you.
I'm
Thanks
great.
for having us.
Already in Bristol, getting ready to go. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about NHRA Championship drag racing at this level.
Yes. Why is that, Mark? What makes you want to do this?
Well, first off, could I kick off the program with, Joe, I know you're in Florida. So if, St. Augustine, the Fountain of Youth, John Force has, without question, listening yesterday, discovered the Fountain of Youth. So maybe it's not Ponce de Leon. It could be Ponce de la Force. The guy is unbelievable, the energy. And there's no question out there for all the fans. If there is a Fountain of Youth, we may not all live forever, but if we're going to stay young, nitromethane might just be the key to that, Joe and Alan. So that'd be my first point of view. Second thing is the juxtaposition comment. I couldn't agree more with you, Joe. You had AB on here with 75 wins, 157 for Force, Herzhauser Racing, Campbell, Ermolovich. We're battling for our first round win, but we're trying real hard and appreciate the opportunity to speak with your WFO fans, man. Thanks.
No, I appreciate it. Well, listen, we had a conversation in Charlotte in the tower, and your enthusiasm, I know they're going to like it. Like, people like enthusiasm, and you're one of the cars that, you know how it works, right? A car shows up and you notice it, and then you kind of just monitor how it does. And I'm monitoring, and I think you guys are doing pretty well. And Jimbo knows his stuff, and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, you're going down there, you're running low 4.0s, you're getting qualified early, maybe sitting out a run, that kind of deal. So tell us a little bit about your program. Just kind of give us an overview of why you're doing this. Like, who are you and why are you doing this, and where did you come from?
Yeah. Joe, thanks, man. At a high level, huge NHRA fan for my entire life. Went to Englishtown. I'm a Jersey guy. When I was a young person, saw the nitro cars and just fell in love with it. I was in my 20s and I went to a bunch of teams. I asked for jobs at Englishtown. And I think during that time of the year, it's hard to hire people. So I kind of put it on the back burner. Then when I turned 30, I was working in Manhattan. 9/11 happened, had a big impact on me, and ended up going to Jerry Caminito's school. From there, I met Bobby Lagana, worked on Bob's car, Dom's car, Bob Sr.'s car for a number of years. Just the greatest experience in my life as far as drag racing goes. I learned so much from those guys. And, they raced off the ramp truck. And so as a young person, 30s, and seeing how they did that. And we used to go out to Michigan. We had the car assembled. We had no spare anything. So for me, I learned that this can be done on a moderate, budget if you pay attention to what you're doing from an assembly perspective and you have all the right people in place. And that had a profound impact on me on, like, I think I can own my own car. 2012, I bought a roller, just started hanging parts on it, save money, hang a part on it, save money, hang a part on it, working in a garage, by myself. 2018 made one race with Phil Burkhart driving. Nearly went bankrupt, had to save our money in 2022, hooked up with Jimbo, and it's just been an unbelievable ride since.
Amazing. Alan?
What's your plan for the rest of the year? How many more times can we plan on seeing you guys? Where's your next appearance?
Alan, I could not be more fired up to tell you that we're going to Bristol, so that's going to be great. We'll hopefully make one lap and get in, maybe two. We'll see if we can lay down another 4-0. We had a little bit of parts breakage in Charlotte. You know, we went to the first 5 races of the year, which was an unbelievable accomplishment. Could not have done that without Jim Campbell and the efforts he's made to find the financial resources to get the car out there. So we're going to Bristol. From Bristol, you know, the drive makes sense to go over to Virginia. That's going to be an unbelievable show, right? With the 3 qualifying laps on Saturday. So have to be a part of that. Then Brainerd, possibly Indy, then Reading. And if we can find some more financial resources, Joe Allen, we'll be at more races. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Great.
That's a good start, right? That's a start. Now, Alan, Jimbo was around. Yeah, you were there for the Hoffman Force battles. I talked to this guy on the starting line, and Mark, I'd love for you to elaborate on it. But he gave me the impression that this is not just, hey, we're out here. That you guys have got parts and pieces, and you feel like you can compete. And he said, like, I love my clutch. He goes, I love my clutch. I feel like I have the best clutch in the pit area. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Jimbo is a wizard all around the car. We all know that. He's been out in the Al Hoffman years, but he was in racing the entire time, you know, after Al was out of it. From my point of view, biggest rivalry in the history of drag racing was John Forrest and Al Hoffman. Unbelievable from a fan perspective. But Jimbo's been working real hard on our clutch program. We've got an old 5-disc in it. We're not making as much power. Our combination is probably like 2009. We've got stage 5 heads, an old PSI blower. We got about 109-gallon pump. So we're behind in power probably by about 1,200 horsepower versus the current cars. So that 408, 409, 405, 302 is a remarkable accomplishment for the team putting it together and Jimbo tuning it, Campbell driving it down the middle. But from a clutch perspective, you know, Rob Bonifanti has been a huge impact on our program. He's a, East Coast guy out of Philly area, has been really helpful in providing Jimbo some feedback on the clutch stuff. I'm not going to give away all the speed secrets there, but I'll just say that their relationship, Rob's and Jimbo's, is the reason why we're running so good. And can't thank Rob, Clutch Kings enough. That whole organization. Without them, we wouldn't be running so good. So really appreciate their help.
Alan,
you touched on it a little bit there, but go a little detailed. Now that you're out there and everybody sees what kind of a commitment that you've made, put together, how much assistance do you get from some of the bigger teams? And surprised by anybody coming over and saying, hey, do you need a hand? Can we give you help with something? How much interaction do you have with some of the bigger teams? And talk a little bit about that.
Alan, that's a great question, and thanks. Capco, Bob Lagana, huge help with us from a parts perspective. They've been helping us with some cranks, that we've been buying from them that have a few runs on them. That's really helpful. But I just say, with our equipment, Alan, stage 5 heads, PSI, that 5-disc clutch we're running, we're not getting a lot of assistance from anybody. And it's a real strong reflection, number one, on the way the crew is assembling the car, man. It's proper assembly every single run. We cannot afford with our budget to miss a run and have it because of an assembly failure. The team's done an unbelievable job. And when you think about that, Alan, if the car's put together right now, Alan, Jimbo's up in the lounge. He's working away on the tune-up. He knows exactly which clutch discs are going in it, which cutters are going in it, how much weight we got, what we're doing with the flows, what we're doing with primary, secondary. So, I know it's remarkable when Force talks about, three crew chiefs with Cunningham and Fabrizi and Hood, and Jimbo is a one-man show. And we have not got a lot of feedback from other teams, not because they wouldn't want to help us, but our combination is so unique from an age perspective. We're kind of doing it on our own. We're really proud of how well we're doing so far with a couple of 0 runs.
That is interesting.
Big credit to your guys for making it happen.
Yeah. Alan, did you have a follow-up?
No, I just thought that's interesting because, everybody that's out there went through the era when 5-disc clutch and the stage 5 heads. And I guess I'm a little bit surprised to hear that been a little bit more assistance from some of the other teams. I know, Bobby Lagana, because of who he is, will walk into anybody's pit area and say, hey, what can we do? But I really thought guys were getting a little bit of at least guidance or advice from some of the other teams. So that's interesting for me to.
Very much so. Mark, what's the day job? 9 to 5. What do you?
I work in retirement, Joe, and for a company, MetLife, and spend my time there and spend my nights dreaming about NHRA drag racing. It's a great combination.
Wow, tremendous. All right, so what's the long-term goal? You've had this dream. You got to this point. I would say amazing accomplishment already. You've got to take stock and celebrate the accomplishments along the way. Just getting out there and qualifying and running and put together a solid team, albeit some old technology, but you're there and you're going to be there this weekend, and you're going to have all the fans of the underdog, like, pushing you guys forward. Where do you want to go from here? Like, where do you see yourself? What would you like to see? Is it you hunting for money? Are you hunting for parts? Are you looking to be here as a long-time fixture in NHRA drag racing?
That's the goal. Yeah, Joe. I mean, we want to be out there, run every race, have all the big time parts that all the guys are currently running. They got the superchargers those guys are running are unbelievable. The clutch programs are amazing. But we really feel strongly that we got the right people in place with Jimbo, our relationship with Bonavani, that, if we had the right budget, and I would say from a, owner perspective, if I was talking to sponsors, there is no dollar that could go to any other team than ours that we would benefit more from. You're looking at the car, the picture behind me, 05 Monte Carlo, running 05s with that, 08s with that, 300 miles an hour is really impressive. We'd really like to get a new body on it. Sponsorship would help with that. We'd like to upgrade our blower program, our head program. We're not quite there yet. The other thing I would say, Joe and Alan, you guys are both huge fans, just like I am, and all the folks that are, watching are. I mean, am I crazy, or is drag racing going through a renaissance right now? I mean, when I think about the Factory X program, Pro Mod, the NHRA TV, what's going on there? I know NHRA launched, I think it's called the NHRA Become a Racer program. That to me is an opportunity for fans to even get more involved. Joe, Project. But we got Pro Street on the cover of I don't know if you can see that on the cover of Hot magazine.
Yes.
Project Pontiac. Alan, your Mustang. I mean, the drag race is going through a renaissance, and I think it's just beginning. The factory programs, the Supra, the Red Eye with the Mopar guys, the Dark Horse, the Camaro. By the way, GM Performance. If a Camaro body shows up at Murph McKinney's, we'll get the spaghetti in it. I know you got the relationship before, so I'm just kidding. But we'll get the spaghetti in it. We'll get the tin in it and get it on. I'm really excited about the future of the sport, and if we can be a part of that, even in the way that we are now, Joe and Alan, it's just a dream come true. I mean, making memories, as Jimbo says.
Well, to be fair, I've had my Mustang since high school, and Joe's had his at the same time, so we're not really part of the Renaissance movement. We've been here the whole time. Just
go with it, Alan. Just go with it.
Yes. With all the high performance muscle cars that the factories have been producing over the decades, or certainly decade and a half, getting those people to come out to the drag strip is a big deal. And then once we get them and see where you can go from there, whether your step is to go into an alcohol car, into a Pro Mod, or into a nitro car, once we get them to the racetrack, then we've got a chance to hook them. One story that I don't know that I'm kind of curious about, how did you and Jim Campbell get together? California guy and a Jersey guy. I just can't imagine, you were sitting next to each other on an airplane. How did that relationship start, and how did you guys get to where you are now?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Jim's awesome. I mean, he's just like us. He's Jimbo calls it diseased. We're all diseased with nitro and NHRA drag racing. Jimbo was working with the Worshams when Jim Campbell licensed in the Worshams car. So they'd had a relationship for a long time. Phil Burkhardt drove our car in 2018, again in 2022. great job, great driver, great friend of the program still. But Jim had some financial resources available. Jimbo called Jim and said, hey, you'd be interested 2022 in driving this car. Campbell, I think he ran from California to Jersey just to get on it, and he's enough energy he could do that. Got him in the car, went out to our first race. I think it was Epping last year. What a race at Epping this year. Epping last year, we got rained out a little bit, but went to Epping, went to Brainerd, went to Reading. Jim did a good job, great chemistry with the team, and Jim and I are both working on small opportunities. As I said, any dollar amount had helped the program, and we've got a couple irons in the fire with some bigger programs too. So met Jim through Jimbo, and it's been a great relationship so far, Alan.
Very nice. Jim Essex is out there. He wants to know what's up with the car's name. First of all, we love cars with names. Last Exit. Explain.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Last Exit. I'm a huge music fan. I view, racing a car kind of like being in a band where you're like a startup band, right? You're going up playing all these small shows. Well, we're on the big stage, but we're playing small shows from a budget perspective. Huge music fan, go to a lot of live music, and I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. One of their songs is Last Exit. One of the lines in the song is "A best we begin," and that's the way we feel about going to the racetrack every time. It's like, you're just doing it a little bit better this time. Let's do it incrementally a little bit better this time. And I know all the teams have that approach, and it's so great to compete with all of them and just be on that stage with those guys. So Last Exit's a Pearl Jam song.
Excellent. No, that'll we'll tell Jason Logan to work it in when you guys are hanging out on the starting line. All right, so this weekend, what's your plan? We got a new track surface, so I feel like that kind of maybe neutralizes some of the advantage for the bigger teams because their data is now, I don't want to call it useless, but not applicable because we've got a new surface on the track. And so, what do you when you look at Bristol this weekend, what is your road to success?
Yeah, Joe, great observation. I mean, that's one of the things we think about when we go out to these races is like, where are we from a blower perspective? Because our blower's a little bit behind. Track surface for sure is going to be a little bit green with the new surface, but a little bit flatter. So that helps the guys too. NHRA does a great job prepping the tracks. We plan on making the Friday night session, hoping to lay down a good one there and make it enough to keep us in the show. If not, we'll try and make one on Saturday. If we get in, we can't wait to go on Sunday. And if we don't, we'll see it in Richmond. Can't wait. The other thing I would say is that the NHRA just does such an amazing job, and they've been so personable in providing feedback and guidelines for us, and just being kind to us as a young team out there. So can't thank them enough and giving us a platform to go out there and drag race with the best drag racers on the planet. It's an honor.
Alan, final question for Mark.
Just thinking, the forecast for this weekend, it's been rather warm here the last couple of days, and they got some fun this afternoon, but it's supposed to cool off this weekend. And part of me thinks a team like yours has to, because the hot conditions, the tricky conditions that everybody else has to pull back their power has got to play into your wheelhouse, right? I mean, if it's a throwdown session, you're going to be out there running 382 or 383, that makes it pretty difficult for you. But if you get where the quicker somebody can go is 495 or 5 flat or 395 or 4 flat, now it plays into your hands, and it looks like Mother Nature may not be as kind to you this weekend as you were probably hoping.
Alan, if we do the weather forecast for Epping in Chicago, we probably would have went to one of those because, as you said, the conditions on Sunday were a little bit more favorable, to us. And when you're seeing those high 390s and a couple 4.0s winning rounds, but the cooler conditions will help our supercharger. That'll help us make a little bit more power. We're really confident in where we are from a clutch perspective. I mentioned the parts breakage. We're going to have, and thank God it didn't throw the body off. We broke an exhaust rocker in Charlotte. So we're going to have some different rocker arms on there from Jezel. That'll change the tune up a little bit. We got 100% confidence in Jimbo that he'll figure it out. And with the cool conditions, we should be able to make a little bit more power too. And hopefully we can apply it to the track.
Amazing. Okay, so in the chat section, someone wants to know Dallas. Did you say Dallas? Do you have a plan for Dallas?
Not yet.
All right.
We're fingers crossed. We've got a plan in place to go to. Listen, we've done 5 races already. If we do 7, 8, let's get to Dallas. Let's get to Vegas. Let's get to Pomona. And let's go to the banquet and celebrate. But right now, not the financial resources in place, but we're working real hard at getting to Dallas and going west for the rest of the year.
Okay, let's say there's like a multimillionaire who just won the Powerball right now, is flush with money, and he's like, I like this guy, I want to help him. Like, how does that happen?
Listen, you've got the Herzhauser acing. That's my Instagram. I put that on the on the name there. I don't know if you can see that, but send me a direct message. We've got a nice garage ready to go. We got the Featherlight trailer. We got a semi. All we need to do is fill it with parts and pieces, and $1 million would certainly help us get in that direction, Joe. We'd appreciate the help too. And happy to put anybody's name on the race car that's ready to help.
Excellent. Well, Mark, appreciate you coming on the show. We had a great conversation at ZMAX. And now I'm excited. We learned a lot about you here in a short amount of time. When that car pulls to the starting line, we're going to have a lot more info to say about you guys and Jimbo and Jim Campbell. He's a friend of the show too. So just super excited for what you guys have got going, and keep on doing what you're doing. Because I think the sport rewards, like you said, crazy diseased people who don't know how to say no.
Joe, Alan, thanks. Can't wait to see you at the racetrack. All the fans, thanks so much for the support. Get out to those races. It's unbelievable. Joe, you talked to Force. We don't know how much longer he's going to be out there, maybe a couple more years. Every time we line up next to him, it's an honor. So go out there, see John Force, see NHRA Racing. You got Tony Stewart out there. Get Tony's autograph. And we look forward to seeing all you at the racetrack. Thanks, Joe. Alan.
Thank you very much, Mark. See you in a couple hours. There he goes. Mark.
Ask Jimbo about the time he recruited me to drive a truck for him.
Alan, we've heard so many Alan stories already in the pits. We could do another show on them.
Oh, really? Do you tell?
Without question. Shooting and some other hijinks through the years.
Any good ones?
Yeah, we'll save that for the next visit, Joe.
Fair. Okay. Fair. We'll start. Another reason to subscribe and click the bell and never miss a WFO radio show, because you never know when one of those stories is going to come out. Mark, see you soon.
Joe, Alan, thank you.
There he goes. Mark Herzhauser. How about that, Alan? How great was that, right? Love the enthusiasm and the way that he mentioned the story, and immediately you were like,
No, I do too. And I have to be honest with you, said hi to Mark a time or two, but it never really had an in-depth conversation with him. So great. How excited he is, how enthusiastic he is, and the fact that he does have a plan in place, basically what his team's limitations are right now. But he does have a plan in place to go out there and, that he can with the resources and the tools at his disposal. I think that, he's going about it the right way.
Dwayne is hunting for a job. He says, do you need a CDL driver, right? See, that's what happens. You come on WFO and you might not get the $1 million, but people will be at your pit area, offering to help one way.
You need to be careful with letting Jimbo know you have a CDL.
That's part of the deal. Excellent. All right. So let's keep on going and just, bring it home. Bristol now. We're headed to Bristol. And the track surface, how much of a difference do you see that making? Obviously, they didn't do the whole track. They did a portion of the track. The tunnel portion, right? Like 700 feet, like from the transition to 700 feet, something like that. That information is out there, but it's just totally different now. So we're starting from scratch as far as creating a book.
And, the track crew is out here and working on the track as I speak, right? Scraping the early part of it, which is part of prep every event that NHRA goes. They basically scrape down to the concrete and then start all over again. And so that's part of what's taking place out there today. I'm expecting that it'll be a little bit green on, but that's one of those situations where the track will continue to get better as more and more on it. And the forecast, the last I looked, was that it's going to continue to get the course of the weekend, with Sunday potentially being the coolest day and the best weather that we have. So if that's the case, then the cars will continue to pick up performance and the track conditions will continue to improve as the weekend. And, that usually makes for a pretty wild Sunday. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And this is a premier facility. This is one of the, if it wasn't the first super track, right? Jeff Bird and his team. I remember the first time I went there, I was like, oh, wow. Pre-ZMAX, pre-Vegas. The Texas Motorplex was the first super track, but like with the
Yes.
massive tower and the glass and the view and just all that they did to make it what it is, Bristol is a very special place.
Well, Bruton redesigned it, and we're talking like mid-late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. The old Bristol was in exactly the same footprint. The old Bristol is actually like 23 feet underneath the new one. They filled in a bunch of the valley. They moved a big part of the mountain because Bristol used to go up the hill and go around the mountain, and they moved the mountain so that the shutdown here and completely just revamped and made the facility we have now. The first came here was for Winston Showdown, which would have been 97, 98 neighborhood when they ran funny cars against Top Fuel on a handicap basis, which was kind of a new part of the national event tour. It was just, the Winston is what it was called. It was a lot of money up for grabs and an opportunity to showcase the racetrack. We did that for a couple of years, and, it was pretty widely accepted once we came back and saw the investment made and the facility that this would be a national event track sooner rather than later. After Winston put on those first couple of events, and then it became a national, and it's become a real fan favorite. It's on a Sunday morning when they start warming and there's only a couple of them that are whacking the throttles now, but when you hear some throttle and then it reverberates through the valley, and for people that have never been to, you've been to Denver, if you were standing on the starting line looking down the left side of the race, it is very similar to Denver. The difference is when you look on the right side of the race, mountain there too, whereas Denver kind of steps its way down and you see the valley and look out all the way to the valley in Denver. This one has a mountain on the other side. And so it makes for kind of an interesting with a split pit, some of them being up top, and because of the footprint inside the mountain, some down behind the racetrack a little bit. But it's a unique feel, and the through the valley when nitro cars are running down the racetrack is second to none. It put it on if you haven't been here.
Absolutely. No, it's 100%.
Plus, I don't know if you heard, might be John race.
Yeah, no, it's like everybody's saying it. They're all talking about it. They're searching it on the web. Is this John Force's last race? That's the clickbait headline of our interview yesterday. John Force retiring? Oh, listen to find out the news. Oh, no, he's not. Okay, he's not retiring. As he said it, I was like, oh, here we go. There's got to be a lot of adrenaline when you get out of the car. You've just won. You've accomplished it. And now speak accurately and succinctly. You've got 30 seconds. Go. It's like, it was good to see. And NHRA just posted all the behind the scenes stuff too up on their page. Kurt did a great job down there.
Accurate, succinct, and within 30 seconds has been John Force's strong suit.
No.
At the Hall of Fame induction in Daytona earlier this year, when I was very fortunate to induct Austin Cole, and John was there. He, of course, is already a Hall of Famer down there. And we're talking about the Motorsport Hall of Fame. And he wanted to come up and say a few words, because basically I think we all know, hadn't been for Austin Coyle, John Force would not be the John Force that we all know today. The speaker that had been in front of me, let's just say, keeping the hoped for pace of the show moving along, what were his prime concerns. And so when I stepped up to the microphone, David Hobbs was the MC, and I said, hey, Hobbs, I said, you got a there? And he said, I can sure come up with one. And I said, well, start it, because I'm getting us back on right here. I'm here to induct the world's best funny car crew chief, and I'm at low ET. And so that's how I started and when I got through with my speech, I told Hobbs, I said, stop the watch. I said, and I said, now, before we go on, there is somebody who was asked to come up and say words. And said, to quickly say a few words on his behalf. Now, I want to say two things. This doesn't count against my time. I got in under the wire. And two, you might find out that a few quick words is not the same as yours. Let's welcome John Force. And then he went in John Force routine for the next, 3.5 hours or whatever it was. But it was pretty entertaining, and definitely got the room back.
No, he's a national treasure is really what he is. Like there's this whole familiarity breeds contempt, and people have been seeing him for so long that, it comes and it goes. Like, we're happy to see him. It's like, oh my God, he's been around forever. But the guy's a national treasure, and the way he handles himself, it's great. And, he's out there running with the kids and the juniors, and just we get to see him go again. Right. And like for Tim Fabrizi, though, he gets to win with John Force, and Chris Cunningham gets to beat Jimmy Prock in a final round. Like, those are the things that maybe nobody is thinking about. Like, for those guys, they are still making their careers, and that's a big resume point that they just dropped on everybody this weekend with that win. Any final thoughts, Alan? I was just looking, I wanted to mention Mason Wright winning Pro Mod, and Joe Lisa and Don Pyers and Mike Handress and Hank Smith and Brian Sawyer, who's the only person who's allowed to win Super Street apparently at New England Dragway. Matt Harper, Scott Douglas, and Mark Cicino, the Dragon Drive Grand Prix. That was a great little ride out there. And, Dallas Glenn won the Too Fast, Too Tasty and Pro Stock, as well as Steve Torrence and John Force. Any final thoughts as we make the transition into Bristol?
Just one. I think that add congratulations to Brian Loans to that list. He was inducted into and Brian, who got his start at New England Dragway, and who now obviously is the host of on Fox coverage and does all the stuff on .com, whether it's the Insider Podcast or and all of that stuff. But Brian, to be at his home track and be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I thought was so a tip of the cap to one of our colleagues. Congratulations, Brian, on your Hall of Fame induction. And like I told you, they usually do that when you're retired and about to die. So is there any news you want to share with us? And didn't find that nearly as funny as I did.
So he broke down in tears. It was interesting. I listened to him on the NHRA Insider podcast, and I was listening to those guys right before the show just to get their take, and he lays like, I thought I was just going to receive the plaque and say thank you and walk away, and it washed over him. And there's some photos of him like experiencing the emotion, and it's great. Like, just go with it, guys. Now, Loans.
No, it is a deal to be honored at that level at your start, and by literally your peers, the guys that watched him sleeping in the tower, and when he was going to college. And for people who don't know that story, I bit with it a couple of years ago, but when he used to go up and do Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, he was in college, he would drive up, he would work the event. They'd end at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then he had to be back at 9 o'clock the next morning. So instead of driving and turning around and driving 2 hours back, he slept in his truck, and he would go back and he would work on his college homework because he was in school at the time, and he would be sitting in his work, and then he'd just sleep in his truck, and the next morning he'd get up, kind of splash some water on his face, and go back to work. Track manager was locking up and walking out one night, and I guess didn't realize what Brian had, and walked over and asked him, what are you doing? And Brian told him, well, it's what I do, because by the time I drive home and drive back, I've wasted all this time, and I need to get my homework done and sleep and all that. So this is, kind of my routine. And the guy threw him the keys to the tower. Look, at least, you don't have to curl up on cab of a truck. He said, see if you will spot up there and try not to burn the place down. And so, in his formative days, he was making that kind of a commitment to be a part of the New England drag racing scene, to further his skills and climbing the ladder. And when people that remember you from honor you at that high level, I think that's a pretty special thing. And I don't think there's any question that Brian deserved it. The first time he came and worked with us, it's like, this guy's going to be part of our team. It's, didn't know exactly where, when, how, why, but he is the perfect job that he's doing. And it was really cool to see him get honored by there and watched him when he was starting out. So I just think that's a really cool deal, and I think it needs to be acknowledged.
100%. They have a whole, like, a deep rooted community of racers there, and they understand where they came from and the fact that they need to keep it going. And Brian's a big part of that as well. Alan, great job as usual. I will see you very soon as we are headed to Bristol, baby.
Travel safe. As I said, it looks like from everything I've seen, it might not be the greatest day in the world, but I think the race weekend is going to be good. And if you've been to We know there's a lot to experience here. It's a lot more than just another race. If you haven't, buy your tickets because you never know. It just forces last race.
Maybe. Yeah, just you never know. All right, Alan, be well. See you soon. There he goes.
Travel safe, Joe. See you.
Thank you. The voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, joins us each week right here on WFO Radio. Hadn't heard of Brian's induction. Well deserved, and congrats. Yeah, well, I don't know why, but he kept it on the down low a little bit. But then again, I totally understand that. Not screaming from the rafters like, hey, I've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's hard to wrap your mind around when a Hall of Fame wants you to be in it. And like, there's all these, do I deserve to be in it? Like, did I do enough? Why am I like, I genuinely understand that. And certainly for Brian and New England Dragway, definitely. Since we're talking about Brian, I do want to mention the NHRA Insider Podcast. If you are going to Bristol and you are looking for something fun to do, I believe it's Thursday night at Michael Waltrip's Brewery. They're doing the NHRA Insider Podcast live there. They're going to be live. They're going to have live guests. It's going to be going out. You can watch it on Tubi and on Plex and those channels for all the cord cutters out there that you guys get the stream and the Insider Podcast that happens from the racetrack. The one that where Bob Tasca announced about the manifold and all that great stuff that goes on. Well, they're now doing some location shoots, and they will be at the Michael Waltrip Brewery, and they're going to unveil a special schemed Michael Waltrip Top Fuel Dragster, as I understand it. And so if you're looking for like the pre-race party, today's Wednesday, so I believe it is tomorrow night. But Brian gives all the details on the NHRA Insider Podcast, and I'm sure that's going to be available on NHRA.com. So you can go and find out that information. All right, guys, put your comments in the comment section. Let's do some final thoughts as we get ready for Bristol. John Force, the topic is still open. I've got a couple of things that I'm going to throw out there as well. Obviously, I want to talk about the people who make it possible for me to go WFO. We're going to do all of that right after this.
For more than a decade, FTI has strived to become the leader in the aftermarket performance transmission and converter industry. We've joined forces with McLeod Driveline Components under the leadership of Top Fuel Funny Car pilot Paul Lee, and now have a larger distribution network, more resources, and more power. Come see us in the pits and ask how you can join the FTI family. It's not cheating, it is the competitive edge.
Yes, the competitive edge. All right, let's see what you guys have got to say. Get those comments in the comment section. As in Bristol, new track surface, all of that. Yesterday, I had a great day. I had an amazing day yesterday. I couldn't even believe it. I will share that with you in my final thought. But before we do that, I just want to, shout out. People are buying the swag, the WFO merch in the T Public store. The link is in the chat section right now. They've got hats now, guys. They've got hats now. I haven't purchased one yet. I will. I always buy the gear. I gotta try it myself before I tell you guys about it. But the fire shirts are there, and the WFO sweatshirts, and the Miami Hollywood Speedway t-shirts. And that's one thing. Honestly, there's a little envy for Brian and all of those people at New England Dragway, because my home track doesn't exist anymore. And we had so many good times and great years and so much fun, and the birth of the career of Darrell Gwynn and Hector Arana and Chris Cunningham and so many great, we lost our track. And we lost our track because, Hurricane Andrew came through and everybody needed housing, and it was on a tract of land that was very desirable. And now you would never even know that there was a track there. And that's why we did this shirt, the Miami Hollywood Speedway shirt. That is the original logo. And when I go out there in the world and I see somebody like a WFO listener wearing the shirt, and it freaks me out. It's like a mind freak. Like, where'd you get that? And they're like, I bought it from your site, dummy. It's like, oh, okay. But that's the whole point, to keep that name alive. Whereas the people of New England, they've got their track and they still have their track, and they got to fight for it. They got to fight for it always, because you know how it goes. Desirable real estate is always desirable real estate. They're not making anymore. And they're doing a really strong job of supporting it. Back-to-back sellout races, Saturday, Sunday. The biggest crowd ever in the history of New England Dragway. Yes, I'm saying it over and over again until somebody disputes it with some sort of evidence or number. To me, it's true. And I'm just saying it over and over again. The biggest crowd in the history of New England Dragway. And, it will become true, right? But you got to fight to keep your track, because it's just so sad when it's just a distant memory and they say you can never go home again. And you can't. I'll never go back to Miami Hollywood Speedway ever again. I'll never. And I have been doing a secret project, capturing and collecting some photographs from Miami Hollywood Speedway from a couple of photographers that I will be sharing on the show at some point, and through our social media and YouTube channels. And again, guys, the Force show yesterday was tremendous. He was great. And we ask you to go there and share that show and put your comments in the comments section, and just tell Force what you think about him in the comments section on YouTube, for multiple reasons. One, so John knows, and two, so YouTube knows. Marvin Rodak. This guy has been supporting our show since nearly the very first day. What does he do? He roasts coffee. He makes hot sauces and spice rubs, and he sells grills down there in Fort Worth, Texas. If you're anywhere around the country, order a little Rodak's coffee. He makes drag racing themed blends like Bang the Blower. That's a highly caffeinated blend. The WFO Radio blend, the Stampede of Speed blend. There's so many different blends, and they're all great. 817-924-6821. Yeah, you got to call him. You got to call him. He does not have a web interface. Order it. He wants to talk to his customers. He likes it's kind of a charming thing. A little old world, right? Like you actually learn a little bit about the product you're ordering. 817-924-6821. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School, they put you guys in dragsters. And many of my listeners over the years have taken the advice and gone to Frank Hawley's for the dragster adventure. And it's like a half-day experience. It's an adrenaline experience is what it is. You can go there to learn to get your Super Comp and Super Gas license, top alcohol license, which I've got some news on that front, by the way. But really, getting your license for what? If you're going to go racing, do you like this? Do you like it? Do the dragster adventure. Drive dragsters for a day. You and your friends having a great experience, hanging out with Frank and his team. And that will tell you how much you like it and set you on the path. So it makes a great gift. It's great for your sales team. It's great for your best clients. Everybody can buy something nowadays. You got to buy something, right? You get an object. Nobody likes objects anymore. You like experiences, unique life experiences that you remember forever. And that's what Frank Hawley's Dragster Adventure is. So go to frankhawley.com, call them, and you tell them I heard about it on WFO Radio. And, they've been on board with us for just as long as Marvin Rodak. It's really amazing how they're with us. The folks at Samtech, we love these guys. Brian Massengill, I was down at Wilson Manifolds yesterday, part of my amazing day. I got to go watch the folks at Wilson Manifolds test a brand new intake manifold for the C8 Corvette, right? I'm compiling the footage and all of that. Chassis dyno, and his dyno operator, they took the factory intake off. They put on this new Wilson Manifolds work of art and picked up 29 horsepower to the rear wheels, just part to part, 29 horsepower. If you've got a C8 Corvette and you want something that is just absolute insanity, that's going to raise so I talked to the guy who's doing the tune. It's like, hey, how'd you learn how to do this? I went to Samtech. You went to Samtech. Do you know Judd? Yeah. Do you know Linda? Yeah. Do you know Brian? Yeah. Exactly. So the next generation is coming up through Samtech very rapidly, samtech.edu. Plus our great friends at Foggit, a spray that you must have if you want to protect the inside of your racing engine. CWT Industries and Bernie's Speed Shop, of course, that's Josh Hart. 100,000 square feet, Ocala, Florida, doing a great job and have built a community around Bernie's. It's really amazing. CWT, they're located in just around Atlanta area. Balance machines. If it rotates, it can be balanced. If you work in a machine shop, look at your balancer. Think about it. What if it worked better, also quicker, and more accurately and it could be run by someone with less training because it was so easy. Imagine that. It exists. CWTindustries.com, FTIperformance.com, of course, transmissions and torque converters, FTI, Total Seal piston rings, and Phillips Connect. These are the people that make it possible for me to go WFO. And since it's close to the first of the month, I always like it, when it comes in, we like to encourage people to join our patronage. Patreon.com/WFO radio. You know, everybody knows about Patreon now, right? Like people are doing different stuff, and there's people like crocheting, pot holders, all kinds of stuff going on Patreon. What we do is we have our little secret VIP listeners club, and they get special content. They get Monday Motivation. They get to hear it from Heiner Pro Stock Show, where Michael Heiner, spends a lot of time attacking Jason Line. It's great. Jason Line going to be on Hidden Horsepower in the near future, by the way, guys. Just got that one locked down. So really cool. Patreon.com/WFO radio. If you really want to support the show, if you like WFO and you want to do something a little different, you choose your own monthly. If you sign up for a year, we give you a t-shirt in addition to all the other stuff you get, which is stickers and patches and, kind of like reminiscent of the old school NHRA membership. Patreon.com/WFO radio. And it was so great to hear Mark Herzhauser talk about Project Pontiac. Project Pontiac. Oh my goodness. It's amazing how many people are interested in this project, and we haven't shot any, we haven't put any video out there yet. We're just still collecting parts and pieces, and I'm just sharing everybody, why I'm doing this. Like, I want to get on the racetrack again. And that's the news. I am now a licensed NHRA top dragster racer. In addition to my Super Street number and ET number, in addition to my Super Gas and Super Comp license, I now have the top dragster upgrade, baby. Right Trailer's top dragster. Thank you, Jimmy Stahl. Little Jimmy, who's going to be racing this weekend. And isn't it perfect that it all works out, that I get to go up to Bristol and give that man a big hug for allowing me to drive his dragster at Bradenton so I could get my top dragster upgrade when I was 769 at 184. And now I'm ready to race, baby. Am I going to race? No, probably not going to race, but I could. And that's what matters the most. Got my top dragster license. Super excited. So here's what I did yesterday. Yeah, for whatever reason, the mayor of my home city wanted to have breakfast with me yesterday. And we spent an hour talking about the city and what's going on and our community and where it has been and where it has gone and where it is going. And he asked me, it was so interesting. I was like, Mr. Mayor, why am I here? And he said some really nice things about, I went to a town hall meeting. This is what I'm telling you guys, get involved in your local community. I saw an A board. Our new mayor is having a town hall meeting to tell us about our community and what they're trying to do in Pembroke Pines, Florida. And so I went. Why not? It's going to be an hour and a half. Why not go just to see what they have to say? Get involved. And he says, hey, let's go get breakfast one day. I was like, okay. And I followed through, of course. And I went to breakfast yesterday with the mayor, which was really nice. And he says, you struck me as someone who wanted to, do something in your community. And the answer is yes. I travel for work, but I love where I live. And we just had this great interaction. And from there, I went to see Jerry and Joan Gwynn, Daryl's parents, because there's something I got to deliver to Daryl. But in the 20 minutes of hanging out with Jerry and Joan Gwynn, I learned a whole bunch about Daryl and South Florida and Miami and all the different stuff. And so I left there, came here, talked to John Force on WFO Radio. Like, this is a pretty good day that is happening. I'm hanging out with John Force on the air, and everybody is listening, and the show is being shared, and all you guys are going to the YouTube channel and retweeting and reposting the John Force interview. Not for me, for John, because John had to clear everything up after that big interview on the top end of the racetrack, and he did clear it all up on WFO. So please share that show so that everyone can get it straight. What's up with John? And after that, I immediately left and went to Wilson Manifolds and watched this C8 on the chassis dyno and knocked that out. And then after a day like that, you got to go to happy hour. Let's see what everyone's got to say out there. And then we're going to get on out of here for today and this week. Just so great what's happening in the WFO universe. And I appreciate all of you. I really do. Thanks for another great show. Thanks, Joe. Look to watch. Latoya, who's out there on the starting line with Mac, McNeil Freeman. So when McNeil's taxi is down there and you hear us talk about Latoya, this is Latoya. Great show, Joe. See you soon in Bristol. Wayne says, love the show, Joe. Thanks to all that make it happen. There's Giovanni in Miami and just many people. Steve Brenwald Media creates the artwork, and there's people who are helping us behind the scenes. I mean, I fly the plane, but there's people that are helping and doing more to help too. Thanks for another great show. See you on Thursday. Way to go. Rick is coming out on Thursday to Bristol, baby. We're planning vacation this year around the Seattle race. Might be Force's last race. Thank you, Alan Reinhart, for injecting some levity into a situation. Every race might be John Force's last race, and it might be my last race, right? You just don't know. Go to as many of John Force's final phase as you can, because when you're there, you're also going to see Tony Stewart and Antron Brown and Blake Alexander and J.R. Todd and Sean Langdon and Alan Johnson Toon and all of these amazing racers. Austin Prock, you're going to be able to see, you saw the first phase of his career. Go to the races. There's nothing else out there right now that is quite as entertaining to me, at least. And I go, you'd think I'd get bored of it. You'd think I'd be over it. You'd think I'd seen enough. Nagy, I feel your pain. My track probably means does not exist anymore. Fontana Dragway, California. Yeah, track. People who haven't experienced it can't understand it. Losing your facility. I've lost 2. I lost Moroso Motorsports Park, like all the tracks, and County Line Dragway. Every track that I was able to compete at on a regular basis and win and have success. South Florida is so unique, guys. Like, real estate is very limited. We've got the Everglades, we've got the ocean, and there's a narrow strip that we can be on. And so they're buying up everything. They bought up everything. They're building on everything. And now it's all built. It's over. There's a lot of people that want to concrete over the Everglades, like fill that thing in, man. Who cares? Fill it in. But I don't like that idea. The Everglades is a natural wonder, and that's it. We're out of space, and it's unfortunate that our tracks are gone, but 3 hours to Orlando, 3 hours to Bradenton, not impossible, worth doing, and still building a car. And that's the reason, Mark Herzhauser, that's the reason that I'm building Project Pontiac, is because I decided I can drive 3 hours. All right, I'll do it. I'll do the divisional schedule. I'll do the divisional schedule as best as I can. I'll do Orlando. I'll do the Baby Gators. If I can do the Gator Nationals, if I can do some bracket racing in Bradenton over there, that's what I'll do. And I'll keep it going as best as I can. Steven, tell the story about the friends that you interviewed on stage at the end of the race. He brought his friend a ticket, and now he is a true fan. Yeah, wow. Like, that's one of those moments that's just lost forever. But if you were there, you saw it. At the end of the race, NHRA is trying to build a tradition where, assuming the schedule goes normal, everybody goes down on the track and welcomes the winners to the stage. Kind of like Formula One Monza, where everybody goes on the track, except they got like 200,000 and we've got like 1,000. But we're growing it. Fans don't fully understand. And I like to think they're very smart people, but they would rather go sit in traffic than come to the stage. You come to the stage, you watch the interviews. By the time you go to the car, the traffic is gone. It's a miracle. You get extra content. You get to be face to face with John Force. And also you don't have to fight the traffic. It's like a genius thing. So I'm on the stage and I'm killing time, just trying to summon people. Come on, gather around. Alan Reinhart is coming down. Alan Reinhart is going to come down. He's going to interview people right here. And so I try to be fun or entertaining, or sometimes I have free t-shirts. In this case, I did not. And so I just started talking to fans. And this one guy had never been. His buddy brought him. He's like a slightly older guy, and he was slightly younger. He goes, I didn't know that this was a thing. I didn't know that drag racing existed. I don't understand what this is, but this is awesome. And I don't know that it even exists, but I'll be back next year and from now on. And just extrapolate that times 100 million. That's what's out there. And that's why I always ask you guys to share the show for selfish purposes. Of course, I want more people to see my show and hear about the sponsors and maybe buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. Of course, because that's what makes me able to do this. Otherwise, I'd be working in the lumber yard. I'd be working 9 to 5. Instead, I can stay home in our WFO studio, which is in the corner of my house, built by XM Satellite Radio when I was there, and chase around John Force and these drivers. Share the show, baby. Share the show. But we're doing great. And also, nobody knows we exist. That dialectic thinking. Two things can be true at once. We're doing awesome, selling out races. pretty good ratings on TV, growing our audience, growing our sponsor. Massive initiative about to drop in Bristol, guys. This NHRA play, The Gambling. It's going to be good. I don't expect a bunch of NHRA fans to start gambling. I expect a bunch of gamblers to become NHRA fans. Oh, there's something new I can gamble on, and maybe I can win over unders. And yes, I expect gamblers, people who are interested in action, to check in with our sport and be into it. We got a lot of good stuff going on, while at the same time, no one has ever heard of us, and we still got a lot of room to grow, as indicated by a whole bunch of people at the stage that they hung out, and they were at their very first race, watching their very first drag race, and they had no idea about any of it. How about that? Wayne says, yeah, well, it kept its track. We saved the track. It's very different. Arizona kept its track. It was saved through the actions of people. That, to me, is what makes a difference. Tracy out there. What's up, Tracy? Good to see you. A lot of pictures from Miami Hollywood Speedway in the 70s. Please, if you trust me to digitize them and email them to me. And I'm going to put them in my Miami Hollywood Speedway flashback that I'm working on to document what I think could possibly be the greatest drag strip ever. Just because of the crazy stuff that went down there and the place where we live. Daryl Gwynn said it, like in California, you had many tracks. You had OCIR, you had Lions, you had all these different tracks. And so they were all over the place. In Miami, a big city, we had one. And so everybody went there, and there was craziness and chaos. And a gentleman came up to me in the tower. He sought me out. I mentioned I was from Hollywood, Florida. And he's like, I went to Miami Hollywood Speedway, and he told me the whole bit. It was really cool. Have you ever heard of the term blowing smoke? Because when you do, you lose all credibility. Yeah, I think so. Blowing smoke. Don't pee down my back when telling me it's raining, right? That's what people say. But hyperbole is not that. I can support everything I say. Like the biggest crowd in the history of New England Dragway. That's not blowing smoke. You disprove it. It's on you to disprove it. It's clearly one of the biggest crowds in the history of New England Dragway. They added seats. Absolutely. So that's not blowing smoke. Let's see. Congrats on my top dragster license. I'm sure this is all that. Yes, thank you very much. This guy says I'm the man. Not Bland, who is now on the Power Hour. Congratulations, brother. Really want to get my Super Comp license. Yeah, this is Dugenet Bland. He's on the new co-host of the Power Hour now that Darren abandoned them. Darren, you abandoned your guys just because you get a job at John Force Racing. Like, come on, Darren, right? But Dugenet has stepped in and is doing a good job. This guy comes out of sports radio, Philly. And you should get your Super Comp license, but at least do the Dragster Adventure, Dugenet. Definitely. Lonnie, help Joe get to 200. So after going 184, I thought if I never go 184 again, I'm okay. But if the opportunity presented itself to go 200, I think I would have to do it. But the big deal is this. I can't afford to replace anybody's race car, so I don't want to. Someone's race car is very personal to them. And Jimmy Stahl would tell you how hard I fought against him. It's like, Jimmy, what if a meteorite comes through this atmosphere and lands on me? I'm just going to feel like it's my fault. And he's like, then the meteorite would have landed on me. So you're okay. It was really interesting. But, my dad told me, never borrow tools, never borrow $200,000 race cars. Hi, Joe, WFO people. Frisky, what? No way. WFO Joe. Local government. McNeil Freeman is my hero. I hope to get to do half of what he's done at his phase of his career. McNeil Freeman should be a model of life for people. He knows we love him, but the guy's a really good guy. Like he's it's amazing to watch him. And he is a dapper dude. You should see the outfits this guy wears while racing. It's crazy. He's got the Kangol. He's got the, white on white. White fire suit, Big Mac. He's great. Everybody loves him. Let's see. There you go. Blowing smoke again. I don't even, so far behind. I don't even know what part of smoke. I always liked staying and sitting in that and not sitting in the traffic jam, leaving. It's so great to be involved in the end of the race festivities. Well, that's how I got in the winner circle picture with Don Campanello back in the day. You gotta like, so much great stuff can happen at the end of the day when you go to the winner's circle, man. Look at me. I'm in my red Winston jacket there, right in front. That would not have happened if we had been out there fighting the traffic at Gainesville Raceway in 1986. That would not have happened. Like, you never know what kind of amazing thing is going to happen to you when you stick around and gather around the stage, right? You just never know. You never know. You're very generous with 1,000. You think it's less than 1,000, Stephen? Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to count. What is it? 500? Seemed to be pretty big crowd out there. Lauren says, Joe, I was one of those people that had no idea about drag racing until my first experience at the 21 Gator Nationals. Now I can't get enough. That's exactly it. And you got all these, veteran fans that just assume everybody understands what they understand, and they don't. They don't know. They don't know. We got to treat the sport like it's a new sport, like it's drone racing, like it's flight suit flying, like it's new, fresh sport. Yeah, we created this new sport where these cars have 12,000 horsepower and they burn nitromethane. What? Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's been around 70 years. Oh, Henry, I'm afraid to say, but we got in early to the RFC Mass on Sunday morning, and seeing all the drivers there, it was fun times. Why am I afraid to say? That's RFC, our great friends, Eddie Boyer and everybody at RFC Racers for Christ. They do a great job with that Sunday morning non-denominational deal. But right, like, it's community thing. It's community. People can do stuff if they work together. Things can be accomplished. Right on, Joey, if they're just watching on the telecast. Let's see. You want to go 200? I can line that up. No problem. You make the call. Stephen at Northeast Motorsports. I'm good for now. Thank you very much. Maybe I knock out another, 180 a couple times. I want to build Project Pontiac, guys. That's where my head's at. Come by our pit and try my, what's this? Ritz and Rolos? Bet. Simple as that. Living my best life. That's what he says. And look, Lee's out there. We may see him at the brewery as well. Okay, cool. I wasn't disputing the attendance at Epping. Let's see. Let's be honest. Alan Reinhart is the real GOAT. We all love Reinhart. Reinhart's been doing this show now since 2005, I believe. And it's the origin story of WFO is as simple as, I went to work at XM Satellite Radio, NASCAR Radio, but I always been a drag racer and competed in drag racing, just NASCAR knowledgeable. And we were killing it. We were doing great. But then NASCAR moved to Sirius full time, their contract, because they wanted to just put on the MRN stuff. Like, XM was trying to create a whole new genre of NASCAR commentary. And they wanted to make it more like sports talk of NASCAR. And that was their angle. And they brought me in, and I had a show, and it was kind of irreverent. Calling out bad performance, those things that you see now when we're talking about the NFL and the NBA. And we built a really large audience, myself and Tommy Noodles, and the Friday, the nighttime show, 8 to 10 p.m., like a huge audience. And then NASCAR went away. They went over to Sirius, and Sirius just kind of handed it to the MRN broadcast. And, Mike Bagley and those guys took over, and they're still there to this day. And they're I know those guys, and they're very talented at what they do. It's just a very different kind of show. And now that I work on the NHRA broadcast, I totally see exactly what they are dealing with. When you work for the series or the sport, you can only be so harsh in your criticism, which is true for play-by-play announcers of the Miami Dolphins and everybody that works for the organization. They can only go so far criticizing the organization. It's just the way it is. If you guys want to do it, you get the job, and then you try to criticize and you think you can hang in there, I wish you the best of luck, of course. But it's different. And I thought it was a great deal to have outside commentary. And we have that now in the NHRA, by the way. We got all this outside commentary that was created. And they can be as harsh as they want. The Power Hour, they can say what they want. They are not beholden to NHRA for anything, and they can say whatever they want. So that was the kind of show we did for NASCAR, and it was extremely popular. Then NASCAR radio goes away, and XM started to panic, and they were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I was like, listen, Let's just do a general motorsports show. We'll keep the vibe going. And I'll do a day of NHRA drag racing. I'll do a day of Formula One, and I'll do a day of IndyCar and NASCAR all the time. And we'll see where it goes. Formula One. How ahead of the game was I for that? Like decades ahead. That's always been my problem, guys. Too far ahead of everybody. Too far ahead. It's not viable. And then years later, it happens. And it's like, oh, okay. But I digress. Called NHRA, Anthony Vestal, who now works at Bristol. Answered the phone. I explained the situation. I was like, hey, I'm doing a show at XM Satellite Radio. I need a weekly guest. What do you think? And he said, Alan Reinhart's the right person for the gig. And he gave me Reinhart's number. And since then, I think nearly every single Tuesday, with very few exceptions, less than 10, I've spoken with Alan Reinhart on the air. We were the first nationwide NHRA related talk show. We were the first to do nationwide NHRA interviews in 2005, 2006. I'd have Reinhart on, and then I'd have the winning drivers. And that was our NHRA Tuesday on XM. And we rode that out till 2009, and then XM and Sirius merged, and they fired everybody from XM. XM was put to death. And everybody that worked at XM, for the most part, was put to death, with the exception of like a couple of people. And that's when WFO began. And I just started. And Tony Schumacher, man, that guy, I tell him all the time, he's probably annoyed by it. Like, he would come on the show probably knowing there was 20 people listening, because there was no social media. I was not allowed to go on the air and say, everybody switch over to my thing. That wasn't allowed. They told us we had a severance package. They said, if you tell people on the air that you're not going to be here, we have the authority to withhold your severance package, which was a considerable amount of money and 6 months of stability. So Tommy and myself and my great friend Rich and everybody else had to just quietly finish our term and go away. And one day to the next, we weren't there. There was no means and no method to alert everybody to the presence of a new show, which honestly, at that moment, it didn't even exist. And so WFO, like the Phoenix, rose from the ashes. And here we are now, years later, doing the show on YouTube and on Facebook and on X. And Joe's begging people to retweet the show, and it's working. And John Force is coming on, and we're building Project Pontiac. You got a top dragster license. And this weekend, I think on Friday, I'll be working NHRA on Fox with NHRA. Of the two sports, the one that is a little closer to my heart. I still love NASCAR, but I'm a drag racer, and that's what this is all about. And Reinhart has been there for the whole ride, pretty much. That's how we got that story. Tracy and Lee, good seeing you guys, no matter. The first and arguably the best. Thank you, Jim. Arguably. No, we were definitely the first NHRA podcast. That is indisputable. Indisputable. We were the first to have a mobile application in all of drag racing. Indisputable. By the way, the application is still working. Push notifications not working. But if you get the show through the app, it's still working. And it's going to be like one of those programs in the Matrix Reloaded that is just like, alive, somehow functioning. Let's see how long it lasts. Like Voyager going out there into the galaxy. Like, how long will it last? How long will the WFO app continue to last? But I do encourage people to listen audio only on Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple. And the YouTube show is really where it's at. And that's really it. What a great show we've had this week. Thanks for the background. Helps me understand you guys a little more. Yeah, every once in a while, you got to do that. You got to tell people like Mark Herzhauser. How many times have you seen the last exit car roll around the corner and just think, there's a car? Who are those guys? Jimbo or Milovich? Jim Campbell? What is that? And now you know this guy's story. You know his passion. You know his personality. You know why the car has that name. All of that in a brief conversation on WFO. So buy a t-shirt. Get the Miami Hollywood one or a mug. Hats, shirts, balls, shoes. Looks good on you, though. How about the GOAT? John Force. 157. Imagine if he goes back to back. Oh, my gosh. People will freak out. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Have a great week. We'll see you in Bristol. Remember the big event at Michael Waltrip's Thursday night and NHRA Insider Podcast. And come to the track. Come hang out with us. And tomorrow, the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Watch the coverage. WFO.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.